Sometimes my crazy ideas are actually my good ones, but I guarantee you this one, it's actually better than the time I tried to melt down plastic to make a face mask. That's a guarantee. How's it going? Welcome to another All About RVs. I'm Jared Gillis, and today we're going to be sharing with you a technique that some might say is a little risky, a little crazy, but for us, it's actually been working well. So I want to share with you our technique for how we empty our RV tanks when we don't have hookups and we don't have hookups nearby in our areas and we don't want to tear down our RV. Pack it all up so that we have to go to a dump station. So that's what this is all about today. And the products that we have that we're going to be using today to show you what we do is we have a tote, some kind of a container to be able to handle your waste water, and then we're going to be using the macerator. So those are going to be the two key components in what we're doing here today. So I'm sure that you've seen these totes around. The one that we have is the Thetford Tote 2. It's the 27-gallon. It has some decent features, some nice features that come with it. It has this level indicator to make sure that you don't overflow it. You can hook it directly to your tanks. Well, today we're going to place that tank in the back of our truck so that we can travel across town to get to a dump station. So if you're wanting to know the exact products of what we're using here today, I'm going to put a link in the description below so it's easy for you just to check those out if you're interested in doing something like this. So let's move on to the macerator. Now, a macerator is something that maybe not all RVers know about, but it's basically a pump that's going to hook to your wastewater system, and it allows you to dump your gray tanks and your black tanks. It's going to basically be a garbage disposal. It's going to make all the solids and everything else smaller so that it can go through a smaller hose and go farther distances and even be able to be pumped uphill. So that's what a macerator is. I know it's not pretty, but that's what we're dealing with today. Now that you get a picture of kind of the direction that I'm heading, I cannot stress this enough as I communicate this to you, is if you're going to do this, you want to check every connection every time you do this and test it. You do not want to take anything for granted. Otherwise, there's going to be user error, system failure, and it's not going to be fun. We haven't had any failure yet, but I can assume I would not be having fun if this failed. The macerator that we're going to be using today is made by FlowJet, and there's a chart that you can look at it that comes in the manual, and it'll show you how far you can pump or how high in elevation you can pump up depending on the size of hose that you use. So we're just going to be using your typical garden hose, and we're not going to be pumping far. I think we just have a 25-foot hose, and it's just going to be pumping to the back of our truck that's right next to our RV. Now that we're ready to hook up our macerator, a great little tip is we're gonna put a clear 45-degree elbow onto our wastewater system. That way we can see if we still have fluid that's backing up against that pump, and it also angles it down so that it's not half air and half water when we're trying to pump, and then you deal with a mess at the end. So if we can get that water to go down into the pump, it's going to make things a lot easier and cleaner, because the system actually works out fairly clean if you do it right. So we're going to hook the macerator up to the clear 45-degree elbow, and then we're going to check our seals. I check the seals every time I hook this system up. To the garden hose, we're going to connect that to the macerator, and we're going to make sure our fittings are tight, and then we're going to make all of our connections at the tote that's now in the back of the truck. Now, I had to make my own little fitting. I'm sure there was an easier way to do this, but these are the parts that I had, and it worked for us. So I needed to get from the larger 3-inch hose to be able to get to the garden hose and be able to have a direct attachment that made it real simple. I then need to connect the 12-volt to the macerator to get everything working. So now that I've checked everything over, I'm going to test it with some fresh water. If I'm going to do my black tanks, I'm still gonna test it with some gray water first, because I wanna know that everything is connected well before I dive into dealing with the black tank. So I test it with the gray water, and once I see everything is good, watertight, no issues, I'll actually set a timer on my phone to begin my black tank, because I know to fill that tote, this macerator can do that in about 3.5, actually it takes like just over 4 minutes. So I'm gonna set my timer for 3.5, so that way I can stop pumping the black water tank and be able to flush it out with the gray at the end. So at this time, we have pumped our wastewater that we wanted to. We flushed out the system with gray water to clean the macerator and a lot of the pipes going to the tote. And now we want to disconnect everything, clean it up. I usually sanitize things before I put them away and get ready to go empty our tote at the dump station across town. Before we move on to emptying the tote, I want to make sure that I mention 2 things that I almost forgot. When you're using the macerator, you want to make sure that those valves are open. You don't want to create a vacuum system by pumping with the macerator out of your wastewater pipes from your RV. So you want to make sure that those valves are open when you're pumping, and you also want to make sure that there's a way for the air to get out of your tote so that you don't build pressure on that side. So you don't want to create a vacuum from where it's pumping from, and you don't want to build pressure where you're pumping to. So make sure that you have those proper valves open to do that. Now, emptying the tote really is pretty simple. We take some extra hose because we're going to leave the tote in the back of our truck, and we're going to make these connections. I actually make the connection to the dump station, and then I bring the pipes over to the back of the truck because ours does not have a valve on our tote. There are some totes that have that, and I can always add a valve to this tote, but as long as I make sure that my pipes are elevated, my hoses are elevated, and I make the connection and then I lower them, that's what's gonna release everything that's in there to flow into the dump station and empty out our tote. Once it seems like it's empty, I'm gonna lift up on the one side of the tote to make sure everything flows out, and then I'm going to hose it out. At this point, we're pretty much done. Everything's empty and everything's put away at the RV. I'm just gonna sanitize the stuff that I have here to make it as clean as I can for next time that I go to use it. Well, you can see why doing it this way might be a little bit too risky for some people. They may not like the thought of doing it this way, but for us, it's worked out great, whether we're at families' houses for an extended period of time and we don't have a way to empty our tanks there, or if we're out boondocking and we don't want to lose our spot. There are really a lot of circumstances where this technique might come in handy. So if you like this video, please hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and we will see you in the next one.